So I'm one of the few people who have always found it absurd to listen to the rhetoric by the presidents and the economic people telling us how strong we are, the growth, the America, the greatest country, all these things. Because what I've noticed is that has become true for fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. Yeah, for Walmart it's a great country when all the regulations are such that you can come in and destroy a local economy so that you can employ people at minimum wage and that only the upper level ownership or the top tier of the company really make a fortune. Everybody else in the company just makes a wage. That doesn't at all seem to be congruous with the dream I grew up with, that I could start a little shop selling crud in a strip mall and make more than a livable wage by having the wherewithal to go buy all that stuff and form a shop and do the advertising and paint my store creatively and create a good rapport with my customers so that I might develop into more than a wage earner. I mean, that's what I grew up believing was the opportunity, and the reality that I found most recently is that the banks, and in their collusion or coercion, however you want to put it, the way they've taken over the governments, their influence is so strong that they literally have things the way they want them, and over time that has become the corporate structure, because they'd much rather bank with Walmart than bank with 1,000 little people like me who might go belly up. But that was the American way. That's what made you a bank. You had to look at me and see if I looked like a guy that was worth the gamble, and then that was the risk you took with your money on me, not with Walmart and his ability to conquer markets through regulation. So it's all just been this really terrible system that's been created over time that's brought me, the average American, a much less quality of life, while sending a few people into, exotic realm with the stock market and with all these other stock brokers that, and now we find out how much of it was fraudulent. These stockbrokers, for instance, in the internet bubble, that knew that this particular company, Xeon Electronics, was just a dog that wasn't really going nowhere. Google was going to kick their butt, or all these other people were way too prominent, way too strong, and Xeon wasn't going to make it. And yet they were struggling. They were asking for people to buy into them. And so, heck, if I can go out and sell people that, I make a commission, and sorry for you if you lost your investment. I mean, that's what really went on in the internet bubble. That's how so many people lost their investment. They were sold it by people who told them it was true when they knew it wasn't. I mean, so people should have been going to jail for the last 15 years in this country, and instead they've been gaining power in government. And that's what's really going on. That's, and I want to relate it back to the prophecy in the sense that, we didn't know that was going to happen. We wanted to see how. We weren't really calling for that, even though people like Michael Kaiser and Michael Hudson, that's why their books are popular, because they really were seeing that at the time, the same way we were watching the machinations of the Hashemite king, and the Palestinians and Israel, and the way the world was interacting with those players from our standpoint, looking at it prophetically of who was going to be in place for this Armageddon, for this cataclysm, this apocalyptic, violent end that they were going to finally come to after making peace. Yeah. And then that's the whole thing that's, that's so interesting, is that the whole thing comes on the heels of a peace, which is what is the stumbling block for the world. They following all this other rhetoric that makes them think President Obama's really trying to fight the good fight, or any of this other crud that the people that are involved in the Fed are really trying to help Americans, really trying to create jobs. That's all become obvious fallacy. So this is all being driven to a head that comes to a peace that can be promoted through the earth as a success, it would seem, or a opportunity for success is what it's. I remember we used to see it when we lived in the days of Americans actually still having a middle class.
Yeah.
And we used to see it as being the kind of thing where it would be a beautiful bouquet of modern economic revival. It would be like a bubble. Everybody making a fortune, and that's why they wouldn't want to pay attention to the prophets that were telling them it was all false. Well, now we've come to a point where I'm not sure I don't have to rethink my view or edit it slightly to reconcile the fact that perhaps the 3.5 years of prosperity prophesied in this first 7 years of peace will simply be a prosperity of not being in absolute depression. Will simply be a prosperity of being able to buy and sell again. Being able to actually eat again after being pushed to the point where it really was becoming a threat, whether the world was going to implode and you were going to wind up either part of the top 10% or in a bread line, sort of thing. Because, like I say, if you watch the guys like Michael Kaiser, if you watch these people that have been right for 20 years on the economy, the way we've been right for 20 years on the sort of the maneuvering of the Middle East in conjunction with what was prophesied, they've been right about these banksters, these financial terrorists, actually dooming the economies as part of their ultimate plan to extract the wealth out of it at pennies on the dollar. They don't have to pay top dollar for companies that are all broke and bankrupt. They can go in and buy any sort of facility they want now at pennies on the dollar and restructure them as they see fit as part of this new jobs that they'll create. See, because they're going to create jobs just after they destroy them all and bring the working class to their knees and bring the governments into line where the jobs they create they have absolute control over. There's no unions telling them, hey, these people are only willing to work 12 hours a day, and then you got to give them some benefits. You got to take care of their kids. You got to give them some health insurance. No. It's going to be like, no, they'll work 15 hours a day and be happy that the last 2 hours they get paid at all, because that's we call volunteer time. They work that so that they get to come back tomorrow and work another 12 that they get paid for. I mean, I watched it when my ex-wife 20 years ago worked in the hotel industry. The biggest hotels, 4 Seasons, the richest, biggest hotels. This is how they would work 20 years ago. Okay, you're in management, young lady. Good for you. You went to school for 4 years, got a master's degree, paid a fortune. But now, unfortunately, you're going to make a little less than the people that work under you for an hourly wage because, darn it, they're in the union and I can only, screw them so hard. So they can only work 40 hours. They have to get $10 an hour. They have to get meal breaks. They have to get all these things. But you're in management, you don't. So you sign this contract right here. And what the contract says is, I'm going to pay you based on a 40-hour a week. Your salary breaks down to 40 hours. However, you're required to stay however long. You're required to stay. You don't get to go home after 40. You just get paid based on a 40. There's no overtime. There's nothing like that.
You're on salary.
You're on a salary. You don't get lunch breaks unless they're convenient. When we're busy, you work. So this kind of situation that was supposed to be, of course, this is, my ex-wife was part of the middle class. This was the strong people that worked there but 60 hours a week to get paid for 40. So that when you worked it out by the hour, she actually made less than the girl that was protected by the union working at the front desk making 40 and saying, sorry, my shift's over. I know there's lines going out the door. But bye-bye, unless you guys want to pay me overtime, which, no, that's what we pay managers for. Get on in here and do that person's job now for less money. So, that's been the nature of the way they want it. And they want it to get to the point where they really got it like that. And that is what they're going to have in America, and they're going to have it all over the Western world, where the banks have participated in driving the people into unrecoverable debt.
Well, but they did something about it in Iceland.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Although, see, like in Ireland, they have laws. They put you in jail. And Americans, I'm afraid, are so soft anymore that the minute the stormtroopers come out and start putting you in jail for your debts, oh boy, you're going to be begging to sell your every last asset to pay them so they don't put you in jail. That's why I'm telling my friends, go bankrupt, take your assets out of the country, and get out of there. Come to Mexico or Iceland. Go somewhere else with your money, because if you've got debt, they're not going to let you leave pretty soon. You're going to be on that list of people that, oh, I'm sorry, Visa, Citibank says that you owe $14,000. You can no longer travel abroad until you pay Visa. If you don't think that's what's coming, watch some of these brass check TVs. They're already, going out and arresting people that owe them money. School children, people that have debts with them, they're arresting them. And so I have a feeling that as part of this whole austerity movement, and that's why I'm afraid we're going to have to live through the next couple of years of this, they're going to implement things like the keep America, no bailing out on your debt thing. No cop-outs like me. Although I didn't go bankrupt because I didn't know anybody, and I was smart enough years ago not to buy into their system. I bought a sailboat instead, which I paid for. I bought a van for $1,000, which I paid for. I came to Mexico, and I don't owe anybody anything, so nobody can arrest me. But for the people that aren't smart enough to go bankrupt while they still can, they're going to get to a point where they don't allow you to do that, I think. And they're going to paint it as, you're not allowed to cop out. It's how unpatriotic to cop out on a country that's driven you in debt on purpose to pay for their imperialistic wars, to make you the most hated citizen in the world. Try and travel with an American passport and see how you're looked at in the world. Put an American flag up on your sailboat and see how people look at you. That's what they've done to you just before they make it illegal for you to go bankrupt or to try and skate out on your debt. They're going to own your very life. They're going to get you to one of those factories to make $5 an hour because you owe Citibank $10,000. You owe your school loan $20,000. And sorry if you think you're going to run off to Mexico and go surfing. You're going to go work a $5, $8 an hour job for the rest of your life.